live from the studios of the 50,000-watt blowtorch in San Antonio, Texas. This is Alan Warren Outdoors.
And we're halfway through Deer Hour here on Alan Warren Outdoors.
Man, it's flying by.
Yeah, a lot of phone calls, man. If you're late in joining us, we asked the question earlier, why is it that Texas is the epicenter of the white-tailed deer hunting universe? Why? And who should get the credit? On the line with us is a man that I think will help us answer those questions, and he will hopefully help us understand why folks in Texas are so crazy about white-tailed deer. I want to welcome this morning Dr. Greg Gist. How you doing this morning, Doc?
Alan, I'm wonderful. How are you this morning?
Well, good. Did you listen to any of that first part of the show, those callers?
I didn't. Your show starts a little early for me. But
oh, come on now.
It starts a little early for us, too, to be honest with you.
We were just talking about that. Okay, so you're a Texas rancher, I understand. I bet you have some opinions on why Texas is the epicenter of the deer hunting universe. Let me tell you what many people said, that it was because of our state agency and the way we regulate deer, and because it's natural, deer just are naturally big in Texas. And we finally got somebody that I think nailed it, and he said it was because of the individual landowners that the reason why. So tell us a little bit about what you think, why Texas is so great for deer hunting and why people come here.
Well, I mean, I think the advantage we have in Texas over other states in the unions is not necessarily our topography or cover or habitat. It's private land ownership. I mean, most of the hunting terrain that we have is under private land fences, and when you own something, you take care of the resource better. I mean, that's just a fact. We don't rely on the government on my property to spend money and improve the habitat. We ask some professionals to help us and help us with opinions as to what we ought to do to improve our deer herd, but it's all private based. It's all money out of our pocket, and I mean that's the answer to that question. Because if you look at, I think if you look and see what the Boone and Crockett record books and SCI record books, you see the numbers of trophies being harvested around the country, and in Texas as well, is going down. That's what you can put at the doorstep of government agencies. I mean, their deer management plans, and now this is my opinion, have not been very successful for the long term.
Well, and also, isn't there a mindset among hunters that if I don't shoot it, the next guy is? So I know It's not fully mature, but I better get it because I may not get another one.
Well, yeah. I mean, I leased and hunted property all over the state with my boys when they were growing up, and my father and uncles with me when I was growing up, and that's always the dilemma, isn't it? I mean, you put out your corn feeders and you do what you do, and you do all you're able to do financially, but the guy right across the fence may not be doing what you're doing and leaving those mature deer to grow and to breed and continue on and to help your genetics. So you're trying to alter the genetics the best you can. The problem is that the outside influences you can't keep off your property.
So that's why people have conservation fences in Texas, is so they can control that, because it's hard to – finger discipline is not easy. When a hunter sees a buck, he wants to shoot it. It's hard to get people, the mindset of people, to get in the right frame of mind to not shoot the biggest buck, but to manage the herd. Tell us, how did you get into deer? I mean, you own a ranch, and I guess you're a deer breeder. Why didn't you choose cattle or goats or something easier than deer?
Or pigeons or ostriches or something.
Yeah.
Some days I ask myself that same question now. But no, I mean, I chased these white-tailed deer all over Texas my entire life as a young man, and then as an adult. And then we started chasing them in Kansas and Colorado and Oklahoma, and spent time in Canada and Alberta, Saskatchewan. I just fell in love with the white-tailed deer. I mean, I loved photographing them. I got to where I very rarely ever pulled the trigger. It was always a quest of something that of kind of a classic trophy hunter mentality, and pulling the trigger was got to where it was rather anticlimactic for me, to be honest with you. So we began to hunt a ranch down here in South Texas, and this property came for sale that was next to this, and we looked at it and fell in love with the property, and I just love deep South Texas. So we purchased the property, and we put a fence up immediately. And then I got the brilliant idea that I was going to go buy a genetically superior deer and put a few of them on my ranch, and my biologist said, "Well, Doc, are you crazy? You can't put those deer out there. You're going to have to build a few breed pens." Well, I think I slipped into a coma after that and woke up about 7 years later. We have 20 acres of pens and hundreds of deer now, and it's been a lifestyle that we love dearly now.
But why deer? Was it just a passion?
It was. It was really nothing more than that to me. It wasn't a matter of this was going to be an entity that was going to make a lot of money. It was something that I just loved the deer. I wanted the opportunity to help other people improve their properties. I wanted to improve my property. And there's nothing that my family loves more than sitting on the front porch of our lodge looking at these big deer come out of the South Texas brush to these feed stations. And we do harvest these deer, but we're very selective. And we give these deer hunts away to underprivileged children. We have wounded warriors and
awesome.
Marine combat outdoor folks here. I mean, there's just a lot of ways to bless people with this amazing animal God's given us.
Well, and the income, if you will, the psychological income of being able to sit back and say, you know what, I am so proud to be able to be the steward of this land, to do something. I did it. There's a sense of pride, and like you, it sounds like I used to be a deer hunter, and I still love hunting, but as I got more into ranch ownership and stewardship and deer management, I stopped pulling the trigger as much, and I became more of an observer and an active participant, and I think that's just a natural progression for so many of us that love the whitetail.
Yeah, absolutely, and I've had this conversation with many landowners around me and people that we care about in the deer industry. We discuss this a lot. When you become a deer breeder and you become a landowner, you basically stop pulling the trigger. And for the most part, that's true. I mean, I haven't harvested a deer on my property that I've raised and I've paid for in many years. But I've got granddaughters coming up that are looking forward to hunting. I've got friends of mine all over the state and all over the country that fly in and drive into the ranch. I mean, I've got ranch managers and employees that love. I mean, I get more joy out of watching their faces light up when they see the buck of their dreams than I ever did pulling the trigger for myself.
Let me ask you a quick question. What do you, when you observe this mass slaughter, I call it, of deer that started taking place this last summer and hurting people like you, landowners that are doing nothing wrong and do nothing but love their deer, how does that make you feel? I mean, do you know anybody that's actually experienced the wrath of the state agency that's come down on them?
Oh, sure. Lots of people. I mean, it's been one of the most traumatic events in my life since June, since Texas Parks and Wildlife started the enforcement and emergency rules when CWD was found here in the state. And I do want to mention that it was found in low-fence deer out in West Texas. It wasn't deer breeder deer. I mean, it was so-called wild deer that it was found in. It's been horrendous. It's decimated many, many small families here in the state of Texas. You have to understand, people don't really understand what we do, and I don't know that we can expect them to, because it's really a small fraternity of farmers and ranchers that do this. But the love that we have for our deer it's phenomenal. I mean, it's hard to describe. The best way to categorize it is how people love their domestic animals. I know how horse people love their horses, and dog and cat owners love. Well, it's no different with our deer. All our deer are named. We know them on site. I mean, we medicate them when they're sick. We bottle feed them when they're babies if the mamas can't take care of them. We splint their legs when they fracture bones.
You love them. You love them. I mean,
it's an amazing alliance between these deer and these ranchers and deer breeders in the state of Texas. Like I tell people, we're the good guys in the whitetail deer industry in the state of Texas. I mean, one of these days that's going to come to fruition.
Well, you know, I want you to hold on, Dr. Gist. We're going to come back and we're going to keep talking about this subject and an outside-the-box idea that I heard that you've got. I want to talk about that. But first, folks, you know that if you have your own piece of Texas land and you want to improve the genetics of your whitetail deer, I hope you will contact my friends Troy Grimes and his operations manager, Jason Lawwell, up at Pine Meadow Ranch Whitetails. Pine Meadow Ranch Whitetails is one of those exceptional ranches that specializes in helping Texans, just like you, to improve the genetics of the whitetail deer on their own property. No longer do you have to wait for years and years and years to hopefully get a good buck or two off your land. With Pine Meadow Ranch Whitetails, they can stock your ranch with superior and healthy, I might add, incredible genetics in both bucks and in does, so that in a year or two, you'll have monster bucks running all over the place. Now is the best time to contact Pine Meadow Ranch Whitetails. They have all sorts of deer, all kinds of genetics to choose from. You like typicals, long, tall tines? They got them. You like those extra wide bucks? A lot of non-typical genetics? Got them too. If you love whitetail deer, Pine Meadow Ranch Whitetails can fix you up. They're good, honest folks who will treat you right, I promise. So when you want to improve your whitetail genetics, go to their Facebook page and check them out. Just type in Pine Meadow Ranch Whitetails. It's Pine Meadow Ranch Whitetails on Facebook and like their page. I'm telling you, once you get those great genetics on your property, you and your family will enjoy your land even more. Pine Meadow Ranch Whitetails. This is Alan Warren Outdoors, and we'll be right back. All right, folks, we're talking with a South Texas rancher. I think his passion is ranching, his day job. He's a doctor someplace, Dr. Greg Gist. And we were talking when we went to break, Doc, about whitetail deer and how passionate you are about them. And the way you and I met was over this petition that to ask the governor to step in to stop the killing, the needless killing of whitetail deer, and coming up with some common sense rules that the Texas Parks and Wildlife would enact that deer breeders could follow. Can you talk a little bit about, are you optimistic with the rules that are going to be proposed that affect deer breeders?
Well, Alan, I mean, as by nature, I would think a fairly optimistic person. I really don't know what to expect and what the state is going to hand down since they passed these emergency rulings. I am optimistic. I do think we've negotiated and brought the science to the table and brought our point to bear that there's a way that we can get along with the state agencies that are charged in protecting wildlife in this state, and we do respect the Texas Parks and Wildlife. I mean, that's something that we know we have to get along with. The problem is that they've been using some parameters that don't make sense from a scientific standpoint, that have been slaughtering these deer, and there's some agendas behind them of enemies of our industry that are not doing what they should do. That's a whole other story. But I am optimistic. I do think by the end of this month, if they will adopt some of the rules that we've put forth or help them put forth, I think we're gonna get some clarity on this and hopefully be able to move the industry forward.
Well, you know, to get, in my opinion, to get 4 major industry associations, servant industry associations, to agree on a common sense set of rules, that's an achievement in and of itself. Most of the time, groups can't figure out where they want to go to dinner, you know? And so you got 4 big groups, and they've agreed on these common sense rules that they can put in place, and hopefully Parks and Wildlife will adopt them. Why do you think the public doesn't know more about the struggles that have been taking place in rural Texas with families losing their ranches and all the devastation? Why is that?
Well, I mean, I don't know that can be placed at the doorstep of anybody but our industry. I mean, quite frankly, our industry is a fairly small industry as it relates to others. I mean, we produce a lot of income and jobs and are a big player in the state of Texas. But on a scale that the general public, what they know about what we do, they just don't. I mean, I live in North Texas, and the patients in my practice, they ask me about what this is all the time, and they just have no idea about what it's like to be a deer breeder. They're mystified. What is this? But when they visit the ranch and when they see what we do, they literally fall in love with what's going on and what we're doing. We have to do a better job in telling our story to average Texans so they understand what we're doing and the animal husbandry, the science that's used, and the love and care that we show for these deer.
Hey, listen, we only have literally about a minute left, a minute and a half. Tell us about your outside-the-box idea that you think the public will embrace. I love this concept, so listen up, folks.
Well, I mean, it started around the campfire, really, at the ranch, and with a buddy of mine that owns another whitetail breeding ranch, TWU, in North Texas. But it was a program to try to partner with and make a coalition with the Texas Parks and Wildlife to be able to start releasing some of our superior genetics whitetails that we're growing into the wild pastures of Texas. And I think there's a lot of deer breeders that could get behind this, to where the state purchases some of these deer at a severely discounted rate, basically covers the cost of these animals, and then there's a program that's instituted that all over the state, some of these big animals with superior genetics are starting to be stocked in some of the low-fence pastures around the state. I think that would be a way that the average hunter would really look at what we're doing and see the blessings of the hard work that we've done. I think it's something that could bring people together, and it's something that now we've got to get out from under this CWD. We've got to get out from under this legislative process. But once that's done, if we could start pulling together and working for the hunters of Texas, that's what we're all about in the deer industry.
I'll tell you what, I think that is an incredible idea, Dr. Gist. I've got to call it. Got to wrap it up. We got to go to the news right now. But thank you for getting up early this morning. I'd like to talk more in the future. Can we have you on again real soon?
You bet, Alan. I appreciate the time.
All right. Have a good weekend, and hopefully you'll get some rain heading your way. All right, folks, this is Alan Warren Outdoors. Man, hour number 1 flew by. We're going to find Charlie Seal in just a bit, and we're going to talk about something really, really important. Y'all stick around.